call to order the November 14th meeting of the Nelson County Board of Supervisors. If you all will please rise and join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jesse, if you will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome on this rainy Thursday afternoon. We will start off with public comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes per person, 5 minutes per group. Mr. Reed will keep time and let you know when you have 30 seconds to speak. And we will start off with Valerie Walker.
Good afternoon. I'm Valerie Walker. I live at 9897 Norwood Road, Norwood, Virginia. And I'd like to just make a couple of comments regarding the planning, the comprehensive plan, zoning, and of course an item that is on the agenda for today, which is the Wild Rose Solar Special Use Permit. And I ask that the board, first I want to compliment you on what you've already done in terms of the comprehensive plan, where it is now, the decisions that will go forward and will be with us for 20, 40 years. And my concern is that Wild Rose Solar Special Use Permit is outside of what is allowed by law, if I am correct, in Virginia in terms of by right use. It has to be a special permit use, or some call it conditional use permit or land use or whatever it is. And if that goes forward today, I am very concerned of what will happen as to the South District and to Nelson County itself, and all the hard work that was put into the comprehensive plan, and the work that has yet to be done with the zoning plan. The organization has proffered some things that it can proffer, which is usually money, to the board as an incentive to allow them to have the special use permit. I'm asking the board to not be overzealous in that, and that is something that has been going on for 30 years in many localities as a way of, as organizations or companies buy land, wait years, and then flip it over into something that it was never zoned as being. Because I have to remind the board that many times when the citizens come forward and ask just to be able to put up a garage or to put up even addition to the house, they're told that they're out of order. They have nothing to proffer because they can't proffer. But these other companies are taking great advantage of the proffering part of these laws. And as one study that was done in 2016 for the state of Virginia on the Code of Laws, and I just put it this way, the Code of Laws for Virginia is like a labyrinth, a Grecian labyrinth, and a Webster thesaurus that birthed a child and called it Code of Virginia, because it is just that confusing. And these laws that you're about to vote, or this one that concerns you this evening in the closed session, has us somewhere in the middle of that. If you sign off and if you receive the proffer, or if you even agree in a citing agreement, then that pretty much locks us. And with the South District, we are the largest A1 district in Nelson County, if I'm right about that, and I think that I am. And if we're not able to be protected as the other districts, and knowing that our land is A1, it's not something else that can be bought for a little bit of money or a trade-off. And thank you. And I will ask that you please just consider that this afternoon. And I truly appreciate all the work that you've done thus far up to this point.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephen Bain.
Stephen Bain, Building 620 Farnow Klein, Ellsworth. I noted that presentation slides regarding through truck restriction are in the packet for today's meeting. Glad to see that. Please consider the following. We know there are 4 criteria. Both one and 2 must be met, and either 3 or 4 must be met. We also know that while the Commonwealth Transportation Board makes the ultimate decision, it would go to VDOT first. I spoke with VDOT yesterday. Regarding criterion number 3, Route 151 is residential in nature. Using quote-unquote typical criteria is likely not appropriate for a unique road such as Route 151. Regarding number 4, Route 151 is also local, quote-unquote, functionally classified. In addition to the actual functional classification of minor arterial. So it's local in addition to being a minor arterial. VDOT confirmed with me that nothing had been received from the county and that they were very willing to help the county with this. Regarding criterion number 1, I challenge the current analysis as not being sufficient and with a notable error. While the current north termini are the roundabout intersection of Route 151 with Route 250, that termini should be, in fact, the Route 64 exit at the Afton Rockfish Gap, exit 99, I believe it is. Without this additional leg, the calculated time differential is overstated. I believe also, my belief is that the time difference is calculated is likely overstated overall. Number 2, it is highly likely that, this criterion is met. Safety issues, accident history, etc. I'm concerned that county staff is rushing this. Better to be thorough, to not miss this opportunity unnecessarily. Again, VDOT acknowledged acute citizen safety concerns for Route 151 and the through truck volume, and was very forthcoming with their offer to help the county. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else not signed up that wishes to speak during public comment? If not, we will move on from public comments. Before I get to the consent agenda, just one update to the agenda as originally published. Under presentations, letter D, the Heritage Center is unable to be here today, so we will reschedule that hopefully for next month. All right, do we have anything on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled out separately? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda as approved. All right, next we have presentations. Do we have anybody from VDOT?
No.
Okay.
Robert was not able to be here today.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay, all
We
right.
had a district-wide residency meeting today.
Yeah, this Thursday's throwing a kink in some schedules, I know. Yeah. All right. Well, if anybody has anything for Mr. Brown, you can just call him or email him. Moving on to 2025 TJPDC Legislative Program. David. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you for the rain as well. I'm here to present the draft 2025 Regional Legislative Program to you for your approval. There was a memo shown there on the screen. In your packets, it speaks to the top 3 priorities for 2025 and really a continuation of the 2024 priorities. First one there, public education funding, enhanced state support for K-12 education really continues to be the top priority among the localities in the region. JLARC had its report last year on K-12 funding formula, made a number of recommendations. You're going to see the General Assembly try to address those over a course of a number of years. They did a little tweaking, or rather a little bit of around the edges last year, let me say. Provided some funding for a few of those items. We'll continue to do that during this upcoming session. So there has been some tweaking of the language in this priority, just to kind of recognize that ongoing need, the JLARC report, and some of those things that have been done. The second priority item is budgets and funding. This is a perennial priority. It's kind of a catch-all position that states our desire for enhanced state funding for state programs that you carry out at the local level. It's the don't send us unfunded or underfunded mandates position, and it also speaks to the state preserving the existing revenue generating authority that you have at the local level. And there are no changes to that priority for this coming year. And then the third priority is land use and growth management. We're concerned every year about legislation that comes before the General Assembly. It's going to restrict or usurp or undo the local revenue, the local land use authority that you have. We had a number of issues that were thrown at us this past year. I think we're going to continue to see more of that in 2025 to kind of put us on the defense. I did want to point out to you a couple of things that have been added to that statement. In fact, I'm going to read the first one because it has to do with solar, which is already mentioned here today. We support local authority to address siting and other impacts associated with utility scale installation of clean energy resources. We support state funding and technical assistance that address the planning, production, transmission, and deployment of new resources. So a new statement there, and then an additional new statement that speaks to retaining local authority to regulate accessory dwelling units. That was a pretty hot topic that we had from this past session that I'm expecting to return again. After the priorities in the program, there's a legislative positions section. This really focuses on recommendations and positions and policy statements in other areas of concern and interest that are outside of those three top priorities. There's a summary in your packet. I think it's about a half dozen or so of changes that have been made in various sections of that part of the program. There's been two additional changes that I want to point out to you that have been made since the draft program was sent out and that you received it. One is some language that will be inserted concerning the Children's Services Act and the cost of CSA should be fully funded in the state's base budget. I thought that had been in there. When I went back and looked, it somehow had dropped out, so it's something we're really putting back in. And then in the transportation section, a new statement expressing support from the state for administrative workload costs in the area of transportation. And of course, I will also mention in one of the carryover positions that you all had recommended last year, support for line of duty act benefits for private police departments and their officers. So with that, I will stop. I'm glad to take any questions that you may have, and again, I'm asking for your approval of the program section.
Of course, LOTA, that's coming back again. Want to thank you and staff for continuing to push that with respective delegates and senators. I do know the bill's being carried by Obenshain. I did confirm that with, and I believe Willett is going to co-sponsor it.
Wonderful.
So we're hoping,
Campbell.
yeah,
Great.
and Campbell on the other side. With that, can you coordinate an email with the chief of police with myself, chief of police at the Wintergreen, with Creed's staff?
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to have a meeting with him.
Okay.
If whatever board member wants to join, that'd be great.
All right. I will reach out.
When is the deadline for bills? Do we have one yet?
The deadline for requesting drafts for bills that are going to be pre-filed is the 25th
Of this month.
November.
Okay.
And then all those bills that have been drafted are filed on the first day of the session.
All the
which is
lawyers look at them. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I was in a education session on Monday, but it was hosted by Senator Favola and Delegate Rasul. And at the end, I was able to go up and speak to both of them about LOTA benefits.
Wonderful.
And it wasn't, it seemed like a positive conversation. Of course,
Yeah.
yeah, there was a room full of people there and, but I was able to drive that point home a little
Yeah, thank
with
you.
both of them.
Thank you for doing that,
Yeah.
because Russell was
Oh, yeah.
heading up the subcommittee last year.
Yes, and, yeah.
For no
I had-
good reason.
Yeah, I had some nice but firm comments for Delegate Russell, so. Anybody? Anything else?
I'll make a motion when you're ready, Chair.
Yep. All right, thank you, David. Hearing no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to approve Resolution R 2024-75, approval of Thomas Jefferson Planning District 2025 legislative program as presented.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve 2025 TJPDC Legislative Program R 2024-75.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Amanda?
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Dr. Liggins?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for all your work. We appreciate
Your
you.
help as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, next up, we have Storm Ready Certification, National Weather Service, and I believe, Mr. Atkins, if you would like to introduce Mr. Strong, please. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to introduce Chris Strong. He's the warning coordination meteorologist with National Weather Service Sterling. Over the last few months, we've worked on Storm Ready certification, which moves us towards our being able to warn our citizens of impending bad weather in time.
Yeah, and I'm here to, good afternoon, here
Welcome.
to welcome and recognize the County Department of Emergency Services, everyone, for becoming storm ready today with the National Weather Service. Brought the rain today as a demonstration. When you're ready for a weather event, things turn out much better. If you have your umbrella for the rain, everything's fine. If you are ready for the tornado when it comes, you can get into a safe place, ready for the flood, all the same. And that's really what it's all about. There's a team at the National Weather Service that's watching over the county, watching over the area, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, ready for the expected and the unexpected. And it's all about getting as much warning as you possibly can for the dangerous weather for the citizens so that they can take effective action and protect themselves, and the county can take effective action to protect the citizens as well. So Storm Ready is really about getting information back and forth quickly between emergency services, the county, and through the citizens here of the county, so that information from the National Weather Service, when we do see something, issue warnings, can get effectively to everyone to make that end result turn out fine, or turn out as good as it can. Because in the end, it's not about a good forecast, it's about everything turning out well when the dangerous weather comes. So whether it's flooding or heat or snow or all these things that can be a hazardous weather threat around here, we're going to get as much advance notice to you as we possibly can, given the high technology that we have. But in the end, it's also not just the high technology we have in our office and seeing things remotely, but it's having people here that are witnessing the weather and getting us information as well. And John set up a spotter storm ready class that is going to train additional spotters in the county, in addition to the ones we already have, that are going to be there on the ground to let us know when dangerous weather comes through, so we can even have better warnings for the citizens here in the county. So Storm Ready is really just a process that takes a little bit of time, that John spent a lot of time to accomplish here, to make sure that the county is well tied in with our office. We know each other well, we've been to each other's places, we have that good relationship, so that information can freely flow when that dangerous weather is imminent, is coming, and we can make sure that everybody is as prepped and as ready as they possibly can be for whatever it is that's coming. So today I did want to come down and present a certificate for Nelson County becoming the latest storm-ready county in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There'll be a couple of street signs as part of the package too that can be put in anywhere within the county, in addition to additional ones that can be ordered. We'll make sure the National Storm Ready page is updated as well with Nelson County. But I did just want to welcome you all to the family and just let you know that the National Weather Service is here to give you as much information as we possibly can as we head from hurricane season right into the winter season and everything beyond. And the storm readiness is just a great thing that I'm just very pleased to come down here and present to the board, the citizens, John, Nelson County in general. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Strong, and thank you, John, for all of your hard work and your team. We certainly appreciate and reaping the benefits of that, so thank you very much. So, thank you. All right, next we have, moving on to new and unfinished business. We have the local health department report report in the FY24 carryover funds request. Ryan McKay, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board, for the opportunity. I'll start with a presentation just about our services, what we've accomplished over the FY24, a little bit of information about our upcoming move to the new location, and then we can get to the details of the carryover request. So my name is Ryan McKay. I'm the health director for the Blue Ridge Health District, which includes Nelson County Health Department. I started in this role in December of 2023. So I've been in this position for about 10 months, but I've been with the health district for over 10 years in a variety of roles, from emergency preparedness to business management and policy analysis. So Nelson County is one of 6 localities that we have in our health district. We operate out of all of those localities that you see there. Our sort of home base for administrative services, business management, all happens out of our Charlottesville Albemarle Health Department. All told, we have about 255,000 people that we serve throughout the district. So a little bit about the aim of public health. So a lot of what we're trying to accomplish is providing either access through our facilities and our staff and our services to healthcare needs or environmental health needs to the community that allows them to prevent disease, to change their health outcomes, and ideally helping people live the longest life possible. We work with a lot of community partners to make this happen. So if we are not the individuals or the staff who are providing those services, we are the convener of different organizations and connect people to social services, health systems, private vendors, particularly on the EH side for on-site well and sewage, to make sure that people have access to the things they need for positive health outcomes. A little bit about our infrastructure. So we really have 2 components to the health department. At the top is really the sort of behind the scenes infrastructure. We have about 35 to 40 individuals who support every local health department in our district with our business functions, connecting individuals to the appropriate services for making sure that we're giving them what they need in terms of insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, reducing costs to the extent possible. We have procurement individuals who make sure that we have the supplies that we need for our frontline staff. So there's a group that really supports sort of the frontline individuals. And at the bottom, you can see sort of the broad programs that we run: disease control, environmental health, connections to different services, maternal, child, and family health. This is sort of what we see in our health departments in each locality. So together, we really work together to make sure that we're not only identifying what the needs are, but making sure we're providing the appropriate services to the community. Just some highlights from the previous fiscal year. We did see some increases in Nelson County for family health visits, pre-admission screenings. Our caseload for WIC has increased. In August of 2023, it was the first time we were back in person offering WIC services in our localities after the public health emergency was declared over by the federal government. So prior to that, we had been doing everything sort of remotely. Once that declaration was declared over, we were able to come back in and offer peer counseling services, breastfeeding services, really providing education to new moms caring for their infants. We are in our locality here in Nelson County once a week for WIC services. So it's been a tremendous benefit to be back in person for those individuals. The car seats and the crib distribution, those are all funded through either state funds or funds that we sort of set aside at the local level. So those are free to individuals who need those. And we offer education around safe sleep programs and car seat installation and car seat safety. For environmental health, you can see the numbers here. I'll say on the temporary event vendors permitted, it's about 21% of the total amount of temporary events occur in Nelson County that we permit. So it's a pretty robust program that we're running here as far as temporary events for food services. On the animal bite cases investigated, this is where we get phone calls from the community to say that they were exposed to a bat, bitten by a dog, and so we do an evaluation as to whether or not the individual requires rabies vaccination or not. And then you can see here we have some other programs that we're running, vital records, and then more of the permanent food establishment inspections that we do. We have one EHS, environmental health specialist, assigned to Nelson County, so that individual is doing all of those inspections, connecting individuals to the appropriate care and information around the rabies program and potential exposures. Happy and excited to say that we are moving into our new location at the Heritage Center on Monday, November 18th. We have been closed for this week to pack up all our records, make sure that they're secure, get everything in place so that when we move from the Blue Ridge Medical Center over to the new location on Monday, we do that pretty seamlessly. This has been a long journey. We're certainly appreciative of the board, of Mr. Gary's support in this, and certainly for the Heritage Center to help us get this space. We started looking for a space 6 years ago prior to the pandemic. So it's been a huge effort. Certainly want to thank the Blue Ridge Medical Center for their hospitality as well. We are looking to start up services again on November 22nd, and that would be with our WIC clinic, and then our environmental health services will be fully open on November 22nd as well. Our clinical services, so immunizations, family planning, that takes a little bit more time. We need to get a certification from the Board of Pharmacy. So we are at their sort of, their schedule in terms of them coming, making sure that our lab and our vaccination supplies and all the storage is up to date. So we anticipate full services on the clinical side to be ready in early January. Next slide. This is just a list of some of the services that we provide. Environmental health, communicable disease. We are trying to expand our harm reduction so that we're giving more access to naloxone, fentanyl strips, and medication disposal bags. Certainly around a lot of education around those services as well. We do have a community health worker who provides direct support to Nelson County. She has office hours at various points in the week, and what she's trying to do is connect individuals to the appropriate services that they need. Next slide. On the clinical side, just a listing of some of the things that you've already seen: WIC, immunizations, family planning. We do sexual health, STI testing and treatment, TB testing and treatment. And then one of the bigger programs that we run is medical screenings for individuals who are potentially entering a nursing home or trying to obtain services to age in place. That screening helps determine the level of money and the support they're going to get through Medicaid and Medicare. Next slide. Over the summer, we really started our community health assessment, and we are doing something new this time. So we do this in conjunction with the UVA Health Systems and Tara Martha Jefferson. Every 3 years, we want to identify what the needs are in the community as far as health is concerned. It's the first time we've done door-to-door surveys in any of our localities. So this summer, we were able to complete 100 surveys in Nelson County. This is sort of a pilot for us, and we focused here in Nelson, given new location, a new health department, making sure that we're really connecting with our community. You can see some of the data here. This is very preliminary. The full report will come out in the fall of 2025. At this point, we're doing surveys and then targeted focus groups in all of our localities. And what we'll do is we'll assess all this information, work with community partners, stakeholders in each of our localities to identify priorities that are focused on each locality. So what comes out of Nelson County, we'll go back into it in terms of programming, potentially grant funding to support local organizations and nonprofits. And it informs our decision-making about what we need to accomplish, not just at this new facility, but working out in the community to provide people what they need, or convening those individuals and organizations that can provide that support. Next slide. Coming up in December, we will be doing a toy drive and providing access to free COVID test kits We do have those on hand now, but this will be more of a larger effort to combine distribution of those kits with also collecting toys for the holiday season. Next slide. So with that, I guess I can move on to the next piece of business unless you all have any questions about our move and our services. Okay.
I just wanted to say Candy and I had an opportunity to walk through with you last week, and the facility is really impressive. It's going to be a wonderful thing both for the south part of the county, the Heritage Center, and yourselves, I believe. I'm really excited about it. Thank you so much for all your persistence in making this all happen.
Well, thank you. We are really excited to be in there. It's a beautiful facility. The construction company's done a great job, and the partnership with the Heritage Center has been fantastic. So we're excited to open very soon.
Very good, thank you.
And then I submitted a letter last week. This is a request for the use of some carryover funds from FY24 into FY25. These are funds that were accrued for a couple of reasons, primarily vacancy savings that we experienced. So we have had some staffing shortages in some key positions. We were without a health director for half of the fiscal year, a business manager for half the fiscal year, and then locally an EH specialist and an office support specialist. All of those positions have since been filled. We had financially planned on moving into the new location in FY24, and so some of those expenses that we thought we would have incurred last year, we did not because we're moving in this year. And so our request is to carry over the amount you see there, $58,667.57, to support our move, primarily the installation of the IT network, both internal and external. Internally, it's about $34,000 for that installation, and then externally, it's $16,000 for us to have the fiber optics installed through the Virginia Information Technology Agency. The rest of the funds that we would use towards programming. So this would be sexually transmitted infection test kits and services through the labs. Federal grant funding has been cut for some of these programs, and while the state is providing some financial support for this, we want to utilize these carryover funds for one-time use to purchase the kits and lab services until we can get more solidified funding from the state in future years to support that program.
So the annual lease is essentially $99,000 a year?
Yes.
About
approximately.
$8,000 a month?
Yeah, yeah.
Does that include utilities, or is that separate?
I think that is separate. We're on a separate electric input and
Okay.
a separate water.
Because I think that's county water, I believe.
I think so.
I think it is, because it's right there.
In the Heritage Center County. Anybody else have questions? All right, if not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Do we need to make a motion to do the carryover?
Yeah.
Well, I'll move that we allocate the 2024 surplus as carryover funds so that the health department can get moved in with all the things you need. So,
I would just recommend we add the amount. It's $58,667.57.
so moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Dr. Lady?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes. Very good. Thank you.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Wonderful day.
And for those of us who weren't able to join on the tour, can we reach out to John Ed, or do you know if there's another?
I don't know that they have anything established, but I think if you just reach out to her, you can get something
Okay.
set up.
Very good. All right, next we are moving on to the Montebello Fire Department interest-free loan request, R 2024-76. Welcome, Chief.
Little summary real quick for you. All right, this request for an interest-free loan from the county's emergency services interest-free loan is to support a loan for the Montebello Volunteer Fire Department. The amount requested is $55,000, and this would be to replace out-of-date air packs in the department. They've been trying for several years to get all agencies on the same equipment as soon as possible, and this would make Montebello have comparable or the same equipment as other departments. Let's see. The loan term they are requesting is for 8 years, and as I mentioned, the loan amount's $55,000. So I will let Chief add any other information he'd like.
Thank you for the opportunity to borrow this money, interest-free. As you know, things have become more and more expensive, especially in the fire service. As soon as you market it from fire and rescue, the price is up like 20%. But like Andy was saying, that now we'll be fully up to NFPA standards, National Fire Protection Association standards, and be compatible with the other companies within the county. Thank you.
Very good. All right, do we have any questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
What's the life expectancy of these apparatuses?
It's dependent on use. Urban cities get maybe 5 to 10 years off their packs. We'll get a century or more from them. It's primarily what happens, the standards keep changing and upgrading, and they're upgraded, it's for safety issues. So there's a point where I can use this old model, not upgrade this time, maybe not upgrade this time, then it gets to the point that we need to upgrade to protect our.
Any other questions? All right, I will entertain a motion that we approve Resolution R 2024-76, approval of interest-free loan request from Montebello Fire Department. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a, is there? Okay. Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yeah.
Dr. Liggett.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, thank you, and thank you. So, yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Next, we have local authority to reduce 25-mile-an-hour speed limits in business or residential zone districts. Mrs. McGarry?
At the board's last meeting, you all wanted to take a look at how we might implement this new local authority to reduce 25-mile-an-hour speed limits in business or residential districts. And this is governed by Virginia State Code 46.2, 1300A4. So those provisions of the state code are the governing body of any county, city, or town may either one by ordinance or may two by ordinance authorize its chief administrative officer to do the following, which is reduce the speed limit to either 15 miles an hour or 20 miles per hour on any highway within its boundaries that is located within a business district or residence district where the posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour. And also restore speed limit that has been reduced pursuant to this subdivision to the speed limit that had been previously posted at that location. And provided that such reduced or restored speed limit is indicated by lawfully placed signs, and written notice of the speed limit change must be provided to the Commissioner of Highways at least 30 days prior to changing the speed limit. So the code defines a business and resident district in section 46.2-100. A business district is a territory contiguous to a highway where 75% or more of the property contiguous to the highway on either side of the highway for a distance of 300 feet or more along the highway is occupied by land and buildings actually in use for business purposes. The resident district is defined by the territory contiguous to a highway not comprising a business district where 75% or more of the property abutting such highway on either side of the highway for a distance of 300 feet or more along the highway consists of land improved for dwelling purposes or is occupied by dwellings or consists of land or buildings in use for business purposes or consists of territory zoned residential or territory and residential subdivisions created under Chapter 22 of Title 15.2. So of the two options that are available to local governing bodies under the state code, both options 1 and 2 require public notice and a public hearing. For option 1, the Board of Supervisors would consider an ordinance specific to each eligible highway that was proposed for speed reduction under the state code section. Under option 2, the Board of Supervisors could consider an ordinance that authorizes the county administrator to carry out the provisions of the state code section. Staff would recommend including the following provisions within option 2 ordinance, which is the county administrator shall receive the consent of the Board of Supervisors by resolution following a public hearing prior to any reduction or restoration of speed limits on a specific highway. So that would be optional language that I would personally like to see in an option 2 ordinance. In terms of Gladstone Route 656 that had been under discussion as a possibility and a desire by some of the citizens down there for a speed limit reduction, we gathered a little bit of VDOT input on this. The current 25 mile per hour speed limit has been in place since 1964. Per 2023 counts, the road carries approximately 84 vehicles per day. There is an S-curve located between the address points of 1035 and 1057 Gladstone Road that naturally influences the speed of vehicles, providing some level of traffic calming. There's a 2019 speed limit study with safety recommendations that were implemented, which included sign and trimming work around the signs, pavement review, repair, cleaning, and pavement marking improvements. The road is not currently eligible for traffic calming measures through VDOT due to there being less than 600 vehicles per day, and the 85th percentile speed is not greater than 10 miles per hour over the posted 25 mile per hour speed limit. There are 20 homes immediately adjacent to the road with on-street parking that are within a 0.3 mile stretch on Route 656, fulfilling the resident district requirement for speed reduction from 25 miles per hour under the state code. This is just a depiction of the Route 656 installed sign improvements that came out of that October 2019 VDOT study. So they did move some, relocate some signs and install some new signs along that stretch there. This depicts the pavement markings that were done after that 2019 study. They installed a solid white line to define the parking area and a 10-foot wide westbound travel lane. So some next steps for consideration. If you were interested in implementing the local authority to reduce the 25 mile an hour speed limits in business and residence districts, you can just direct staff accordingly to either proceed with option 1, and if you wanted to proceed in that manner with Route 656 Gladstone Road, staff would draft the ordinance and authorization for public hearing resolution for the board's future consideration. If option 2 is preferred, we could draft the ordinance and authorization for public hearing, also for future consideration, and that would put the ordinance in the county code so that you could take advantage of it whenever you chose to do so. Or you could just take no action at this time. Staff would recommend, if you'd like to take action, to go with option 2, which is the ordinance that authorizes the county administrator to carry out the provisions of this code section, and adding the additional language of with the consent of the board by resolution following a public hearing. As mentioned, this would provide for local authority in the county code for present or future use. Would also like to note, per VDOT's count, there are approximately 30 highways in the county with a 25-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. I would also recommend that the board request enforcement of the current speed limit prior to pursuing a reduction in the speed limit for Route 656 in Gladstone. Any questions or discussion on what you all might like to do with this
So
local authority?
the 30 highways in the county that have a 25-mile-an-hour posted speed limit, that doesn't necessarily mean they fall into this, because there's more than just that criteria.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
They
'cause-
may or may not be considered a resident or business district.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I was just curious as to, well, how many
do we have? Yeah. Any comments or questions?
It was mentioned by VDOT to me several times that really enforcement or traffic calming are the two directions that are really actually going to slow speed limits down. But it was also mentioned that if we don't lower the speed limit, then, if we lower speed limit, people continue going the same speed as they are now, they will go over the 83% threshold, and therefore we could do traffic calming measures. So, in the best interest of actually getting traffic calming, which is what I care about most, I guess we need to drop the speed limit. So which option would you all like?
I guess either one has to go to a public hearing. And we throw both options in the public hearing and pick one, or do you have to pick one?
Option 2 would not necessarily have to go to it would have to go to a public hearing just to get the ordinance ratified.
Yes.
But you wouldn't necessarily have to do a public hearing for each road that was considered.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was the concern of the board the last meeting
Yeah.
when this came up.
Yeah, I'm still on option 3, a no action. I'm not crazy about the county getting into VDOT business, and, I just don't see that we have, based on their information, I don't know, I'm just not a fan.
From 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I wonder, you mentioned the 85th percentile in order to get the traffic calming, but there's also that there's less than 600 vehicles per day. That might play into it as well. So, as far as the traffic calming.
Yeah, and by less than 600, you mean 84.
Right.
Is that what's?
Yeah.
Well, that was in 2019.
Yeah.
Right.
Has there been a spike in residential growth?
You'd have to do a study.
Sit there on a Tuesday. If we want to take this to a public hearing, I have no anxieties about doing that. If we did a motion for the second option, as Candy had indicated, and get some more community input and get Gladstone folks out here to speak to the piece of it. But I will defer to what you suggest, Dr. Lloyd.
There have been several very vocal
Yeah.
residents in Gladstone about this subject.
Okay.
I see value in the ordinance regardless of, what the objectives in Gladstone are. So, so I wouldn't be adverse to the public hearing, and it also would be good, I think, if we decided to go forward, if we had a motion to go forward with the Gladstone reduction, to hear from the constituents about, and from in Gladstone and in other parts of the county who might be able to utilize the ordinance change as well.
in this particular case, if you wanted to proceed with Gladstone, maybe what we should do is do option 1 and do an ordinance and public hearing on Gladstone specifically, and then following that, do option 2 and get the ordinance on the books. Because if I'm just trying to think logistically, we would have to have the ordinance on the books first and then do Gladstone if we did it that way, potentially.
I'm sorry, I thought that was what the recommendation was. I'm sorry.
It was
Right.
in her presentation.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
But now you're
Yes.
saying something different.
Well, it would just take maybe more steps if you wanted to do option 2, do that first, and then do a public hearing maybe the next month or thereafter on Gladstone. I'm just thinking there would be a little bit of time, steps to go through.
I think you're still making steps forward.
Right, yeah.
So, were you looking to do a motion with option 1, 2,
Would you agree to?
whatever you suggest?
I would like to move forward with option 2.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then,
So in that case, what we would do is we'll draft the ordinance and the authorization for public hearing for December. And then have y'all authorize the public hearing for January likely.
Okay.
Okay, does that sound good? Now, do you want the optional language suggested that it's with the consent of the board by resolution following a public hearing for any roads that are proposed?
I mean, I err on the side of public hearings for those types of things.
And that's kind of what I was thinking
Yeah,
when
I mean, I err on the side that if one road might have a different opinion, then let's have a public hearing to it. I think that would
Yeah,
make most
I
sense
agree.
for good governance purposes.
Okay.
Is that okay to add that language in?
Okay. All right, so that's the consensus of the board to go with option 2 using the optional language.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Do we need a vote on this, or is this just consensus at this point?
I think consensus is fine. And then we'll bring it back, like I said, in December for official action.
Okay. All right, thank you. And next, we have Route 151 through truck restriction.
All right. The board had asked staff to take a look at the Route 151 through truck restriction possibilities, and this is not related to truck length or weight, just to clarify that. The state code governing this is 46.2-809. And that says that the Commonwealth Transportation Board or its designee, in response to a formal request by a local governing body, after such body has held public hearings, may, after due notice and a proper hearing, prohibit or restrict the use by through traffic of any part of a primary or secondary highway if a reasonable alternate route is provided. The board or its designee shall act upon any such formal request within 9 months of its receipt unless good cause is shown. Such restriction may apply to any truck or truck and trailer or semi-trailer combination except a pickup or panel truck, as may be necessary to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the Commonwealth. Nothing in this section shall affect the validity of any city charter provision or city ordinance heretofore adopted. The Commonwealth Transportation Board delegates the authority to restrict through truck traffic on secondary highways to the Commissioner of Virginia Department of Transportation. Such restrictions can apply to any truck, truck and trailer, or semi-trailer combination, or any combination of those classifications. Consideration of all such restrictions by the Commissioner is subject to the guidelines as adopted by the Board, meaning the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and the Commonwealth Transportation Board retains the authority to restrict through truck traffic on primary highways. So VDOT guidelines in requesting a through truck restriction are as follows. Local governing body must hold a public hearing and make a formal request of the department. The following must be adhered to. The public notices for the hearing must include a description of the proposed through truck restriction and the alternate route with the same termini. A copy of the notices must be provided. The public hearing must be held by the local governing body, and a transcript of the hearing be provided with the resolution. The resolution must describe the proposed through truck restriction and a description of the alternate, including termini. The governing body must include in the resolution that it will use its good offices for enforcement of the proposed restriction by the appropriate local law enforcement agency. Failure to comply with A, B, C, and D will result in the request being returned. The Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Commissioner shall act upon any such formal request within 9 months of its receipt unless good cause is shown. So, after reviewing discussions by the board, staff analyzed 2 different through truck restriction routes. We're certainly willing to look at any others if, as Mr. Bain pointed out, if you wanted to start at the Route 64 interchange versus at the Route 250 intersection with 151 in Afton, we certainly could do so if the board wishes. Okay. So in analyzing our first proposed through truck restriction, this would go, the beginning termini would be Route 250 intersection with Route 151 in Afton, goes south to Route 151 and the Route 56 West intersection at Piney River, which would be the ending termini. Google Maps showed this to be 27.3 miles long and take 33 minutes to traverse. So it's just something to point out, coordination with Albemarle County and the Culpeper District, VDOT would be required to restrict the portion of Route 151 in Albemarle County. So that would go for any part of any restriction that would be in another jurisdiction. The proposed alternate route to this restricted route would start again at the same beginning termini, Route 250 intersection with Route 151 in Afton. Go east to Route I-64 to exit 118A. Down Route 29 south to the intersection of Route 151 and Route 56 west of Piney River with the same ending termini as the restricted route. Google Maps shows this is a 53.6 mile route and would take 54 minutes. The second restriction that we looked at started again at the same beginning termini at Route 250 intersection with 151 in Afton. Went down 151 to Route 6 and River Road, went east to Route 29 at Woods, and ended in Woods Mill. That would be the ending termini. This was a 14.5 mile long route and would take 18 minutes according to Google Maps. Again, coordination with Albemarle County and the Culpeper District would be required to restrict the portion of Route 151 in Albemarle County. And also VDOT may consider this a restriction on 2 routes because you've involved Route 151 and Route 6. At the time that I did this presentation for the packet, I hadn't heard anything back from VDOT on this, but I did speak to Robert Brown, and he said yes, they would consider this as 2 separate routes. So I'm not quite sure how that would affect this particular scenario. The proposed alternate route to this second restricted route, again, same beginning termini at Route 250 intersection with 151 in Afton. We would head east to exit 107 to Route I-64 east and then take exit 118A to US Route 29 south, down to the intersection of Route 151 and Route 6 at Woods Mill, which is the same ending termini. This would provide for a 37-mile route and take 36 minutes, again, according to Google Maps.
Is there a no through truck through Batesville?
Yes, Albemarle County just did that. That was the first alternate route I was looking at, and then they restricted it. So. All right, so just to do a little analysis of the proposed through truck restrictions 1 and 2. Both proposed restrictions involve roads classified by VDOT as primary highways, which means the Commonwealth Transportation Board retains the authority to approve the through truck restrictions on these routes. They would be the approving authority. However, as Mr. Bain noted, VDOT would actually do the engineering analysis. Basically, the steps we're going through right now, they would also do. So proposed restriction number 1 only involves the primary highway of concern, which is Route 151. Proposed restriction number 2 involves restricting Route 151 and Route 6 River Road. And again, at the time I wrote this, I wasn't sure if that would be considered 2 primary highway restrictions, but according to Robert Brown, it would be. For both proposed restrictions, coordination with Albemarle County and Culpeper VDOT District would be required to restrict a portion of Route 151 in Albemarle County, which is up at the roundabout and the intersection with Route 250. Alright, so now we'll just talk about the Commonwealth Transportation Board proposed restriction evaluations against their criteria. Commonwealth Transportation Board will consider the following criteria 1 through 4 in reviewing a requested through truck restriction. The proposed restriction must meet both the first and second criteria in order to be approved. In addition to meeting the first 2 criteria, the proposed restriction must meet either the third or the fourth criteria in order to be approved. Okay. So the 2 criteria that both must be met are 1, the reasonable alternate routing is provided. The alternate route will be evaluated for traffic and safety-related impacts. To be considered reasonable, the alternate routes must be engineered to a standard sufficient for truck travel and must be judged at least as appropriate for truck traffic as the requested truck restriction route. If an alternate route must be upgraded, the improvement shall be completed before the truck restriction can be implemented. The termini of the proposed restriction must be identical to the alternate routing to allow a time and distance comparison to be conducted between the 2 routings. Also, the alternate routing must not create an undue hardship for trucks in reaching their destination. Criteria 2 says the character and/or frequency of the truck traffic on the route proposed for restriction is not compatible with the affected area. Evaluation of this will include safety issues, accident history, engineering of the roadway, vehicle composition, and other traffic engineering related issues. So looking at criteria 1, is a reasonable alternate route provided? So in analyzing the proposed alternate routes 1 and 2, the CTB would evaluate the reasonableness of the alternate route proposed. Both proposed alternate routes are engineered to a standard sufficient for truck travel and are probably better engineered for truck traffic than either of the proposed restricted routes. Proposed alternate route 1 has a greater distance of 26.3 miles and would take 21 minutes longer to reach the same destination as using the proposed restricted route 1. This is calculated using Google Maps. And here's just a little chart showing the restricted route as compared to the alternate route and the difference in miles and minutes. And looking at proposed alternate routes 1 and 2, proposed alternate route 2 has a greater distance of 22.5 miles and would take 18 minutes longer to reach the same destination as using the proposed restricted route number 2, as calculated by Google Maps. So in these scenarios, both proposed alternate routes are likely to be considered to create an undue hardship for trucks in reaching their destination because of the greater distance and longer time it would take to reach the same destination as the proposed restricted routes. For criteria 2, the character and/or frequency of the truck traffic on the route proposed for restriction is not compatible with the affected area. In analyzing the proposed restricted routes 1 and 2, the CTB would evaluate whether or not the character and/or frequency of the truck traffic is compatible with the affected area for each of the proposed routes for restriction. Their evaluation would include safety issues, accident history, engineering of the roadway, vehicle composition, and other traffic engineering related issues. And just from my understanding from all of the safety studies done, and things related to 151, that this criteria has the possibility to be met for both the proposed restricted routes. In addition to meeting both criteria 1 and 2, you have to meet either criteria 3 or 4 for the proposed restriction. So the proposed restricted roadway is residential in nature. Typically, the roadway will be judged to be residential if there are at least 12 dwellings combined on both sides within 150 feet of the existing or proposed roadway center line per 1,000 feet of roadway. That's how they define residential in nature. The proposed restricted roadway must be functionally classified as either a local or collector. Okay, and looking at criteria 3, which is the restricted roadways residential in nature, the analysis of the proposed restricted routes 1 and 2, the CTB would evaluate whether or not these routes, 151 and Route 6 River Road, are residential in nature, and would typically judge it to be so if there, again, are at least 12 dwellings combined on both sides within 150 feet of the existing or proposed roadway center line per 1,000 feet of roadway. Staff evaluation of this criterion using GIS shows that both proposed restricted routes would not meet this criteria. And we'll look at that a little further here. So our first proposed restricted route, which is Route 250, intersection with Route 151 in Afton, going south to the intersection of 151 at Route 56 in Piney River. The GIS mapping showed no 1,000 feet segments that contain 12 or more address points combined on both sides within 150 feet of the center line. So address points includes dwellings and any other structure with an address. Okay. So this is an inset of a high-density area in Nelly's Ford on 151, where all of the qualifying address points are pulled in, and it does not meet criteria 3. There are not at least 12 blue points on either side of the roadway there in each of those little 1,000 foot sections. All right, looking at restricted route 2, which goes from the roundabout at 250 and 151 down to Martin Store, cutting over Route 6 to 29 in Woods Mill. This also, GIS mapping showed no 1,000 foot segments that contain 12 or more address points combined on both sides within 150 feet of the center line. Again, address points include dwellings and any other structure with an address. Here's a zoomed in section of the northern part of Route 151, which was one of the most dense zones of qualifying address points, and this is in the Martin Store area. You can see there are not 12 blue dots within that 1,000 foot segment shown in that area. This is a zoomed in segment of Route 6 River Road, one of the more densely dense areas of qualifying address points on Route 6. And that's that little section right before you get to Route 29. And that also does not meet criteria 3. All right, for criteria 4, the restricted roadway must be functionally classified by VDOT as either local or collector. And looking at both these two routes, what I found was that VDOT had classified these, were functionally classified as both minor arterial, both Route 151 and Route 6. So in my evaluation of that, this criteria could not be met due to this VDOT functional classification of the proposed restricted routes. and I used their ArcGIS online tool to establish their functional classification. Or not establish it, but to research it. Okay, so in looking at this, again, to conclude, both criteria 1 and 2 must be met. My analysis of the routes that I looked at, the probability of meeting both criteria 1 and 2 is fairly low due to the potential for not meeting criteria 1, which is the alternate routes are not likely to be considered reasonable due to the possible undue hardship that they may pose for trucks in reaching their destination. There's a good probability of meeting criteria 2 for both proposed restricted routes once further evaluated by VDOT traffic engineering. Either criteria 3 or 4 must be met. Criteria 3 cannot be met. Analysis using GIS shows the proposed restricted routes are not residential in nature, and that's by VDOT's definition because they do not have at least 12 dwellings combined on both sides of the road within 150 feet of their center lines per each 1,000 feet of roadway. Criteria 4 cannot be met due to both of the proposed restricted routes being functionally classified as minor arterial and not as local or collector. So given that, the inability to meet criteria 3 or 4 for both proposed through truck restrictions, staff does not recommend moving forward with the process to request a through truck restriction on Route 151 or Route 151 and Route 6 River Road. And again, this is based on the beginning and ending termini that I had identified in the staff study. If there's another route we could look at, we're happy to do that. So there are some other measures that may reduce through truck traffic on 151. Following measures are being sought to change the road geometry of Route 151, which will make it less conducive to through truck traffic. A reduction in speed limit from 55 miles per hour to 50 miles per hour has been requested by staff on behalf of the board for Route 151 heading north of Glenwade Lane to the county line. A roundabout at the intersection of Route 151 and Route 6 River Road has been funded by the CTB and is in the engineering phase of construction. We also have a proposed roundabout at the intersection of Tambark Drive and 151 in Afton. That is a pending final application through Smart Scale funding through the CTB. So happy to entertain questions or any discussion how you might want to proceed or not from here.
Do we have an estimate on the roundabout at Martin Store? What's the timeline on that construction? You know?
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I can't remember. I had somebody ask me this week and I couldn't remember.
Yeah. 26 or 27.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't know you were here.
She snuck in.
She did.
Well, I mean, my only question is why the termini where they are? I mean, mainly the one in Piney River. I mean, if we went into Albemarle County and used Route 250, why didn't we use Route 29 and 151 on the southern end? That would, because what we're doing, it's not logical for a truck. If they can't go through the Piney River to Afton portion, it's illogical for them to turn off onto 151, go to Piney River. That's old Route 29. Well, they rerouted that road in the 60s because it made more sense to go straight from Amherst to Livingston. So that, to me, I don't think it would change the results of this study any. It's not going to meet the criteria of the number of blue dots. I don't think anywhere from Piney River to Clifford is going to meet that criteria. If Nellie's Ford doesn't meet it, I don't think Clifford's going to meet it. But I did think it was interesting that we stopped there because the alternate route still let traffic come into Piney River and just put it out on 56.
Right.
Yeah,
but I think that was something that we had discussed during one of the board meetings, I think is why that was, and I don't think it's going to change any of the results, and I don't think it's going to change the results if we had extended it even further up to Afton Mountain. Yeah.
But
Yeah, the likelihood that VDOT would have restricted 250 coming off Afton Mountain, going east is even less than this.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you for all the work, and I appreciate, the process and the information, even if I don't appreciate the outcome. Clearly, VDOT does not have something within its definitions that applies to this area that we can use to help solve the problems that we've got. However, the other measures that have been put out here are the ones we discussed in the working meeting we had with VDOT. And while it's inconceivable that we would that the county would condone or promote the level of development that it would take to have enough dots on both sides of the road in this area. Clearly, there are things that are going to be happening that will influence, the safety level or lack of safety that we have right now, and the speed issues. So, my thanks to VDOT for all the time. My thanks to you for everything you put forth with this. And this is now something in our back pockets, because as the other measures change, there might be other things that can happen on 151 to slow things down that are not listed on this, that the future development might hold. But for the time being, this is one of those areas that VDOT's not going to be our friend in terms of reaching the goal that we wanted to achieve, I think. So, and I certainly am not in favor of, challenging the conclusions that VDOT has come to when the outcome is preordained. It would, be spinning wheels and spending time on something, I think, that would not have a conceivable beneficial outcome for the county or for us to do that. So those are my thoughts.
Just for the future, when we have more dots, I do not agree that the additional or doubling the time is undue hardship.
Yeah, that would be a determination by VDOT.
Right, but I don't want that to hold the county back
Mhm.
in that, if that makes sense.
I absolutely agree with
Yeah.
that. Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Mhm.
There'll be more blue dots eventually. Jesse.
Yep.
But will
Yeah.
they be within 150 feet of the center line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are
Time will
certainly
tell.
lots more blue dots, but they're not within that
150 feet.
150 feet of the center.
It's interesting how they take their metrics.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, VDOT takes a real cookie cutter approach to transportation. And when you have areas that don't fit into those boxes neatly, there's not a lot of wiggle room that we have with VDOT, so.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very thorough. All right. Next, moving on to reports. And while you're there, you're next. Yep.
All right. First, I'd like to let the board know, I think Mr. Parr is aware that this is not on my report that was provided to you. Just got this news that we've gotten all of the Knox boxes installed on county buildings, and this is where keys are available for access into these buildings after hours if there is an emergency, such as a fire emergency. The fire department now would have just immediate access to these buildings should they need to respond to an emergency.
And this includes county buildings and all the school.
I believe the
Yep.
schools
I
got
think so.
them also.
Yeah.
These are all the county.
I think theirs were first, I
Right.
believe. Yeah,
That's
okay.
correct. Yep, so those are installed and are currently now active, so that's very exciting.
Yeah.
And thanks to John and Deputy Chief Riddle, and also Jeff Brantley and Billy Hart for getting those things installed. Okay, We'll start off with a couple of VDOT items. So as noted in this last presentation, we did make a request to VDOT on behalf of the board to reduce the speed limit zones on Route 151 from 55 to 50, from Blandwade Lane north to the county line in Afton. Also in Livingston, they have installed flashing pedestrian crossing signs at the intersection of Route 29 and Route 1001 in Livingston to enhance pedestrian safety crossing in that middle area where you cross between Livingston and Livingston Ridge Apartments. So those are in place now. Our DSS building project, we have been meeting with the design committee and PMA. We've had a couple meetings in November, and this is to position PMA to report back to the board at the December 10th board meeting. Staff and the county attorney are currently working with the property owner towards closing on the purchase of the property for that building. Let's see, at the October 23rd Region 2000 Solid Waste Authority meeting, the members voted unanimously to proceed in submitting a rezoning and special use permit request for the proposed landfill expansion. And that goes to the Campbell County Planning Commission first, and then a recommendation is made to their board. The request is expected to be considered by their Planning Commission on December 2nd, and then by the Board of Supervisors on January 7th. And then we have a closed session scheduled later in this meeting to discuss the Region 2000 litigation. I previously reported on a potential pilot program by the ACRJ for opioid use disorder. The update on that is, let's see, that the ACRJ staff was not able to apply for the DCJS grant for this purpose that I mentioned might be a possibility. Therefore, I would like to get the board's consensus for county staff to apply for the use of our opioid abatement authority individual distribution funds in our pro rata share amount of $21,045 to pay for our share of this pilot study. So our share is about 15.9% out of a total anticipated cost of $132,361. And as of FY25, we have an available balance of these funds with the opioid abatement authority that we can apply for is $34,844. So if the board has what your thoughts are on that, if you'd like to authorize us to proceed with that application for this purpose, we'll do so.
So this is just allocating existing funds.
Yes, yes. They're just sitting in a pot with the opioid abatement authority at the state level, and we just have to apply for them for qualifying use, basically.
We've done this before.
Well, we haven't, we have not applied for use of these funds before.
But we have that relationship with funds that
Yes.
that are
Yes.
to be used for that. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, I'm certainly in favor of it. If you need a motion, I'd be happy to make it.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. I move that that the board apply for the use of the OAA distribution funds of $21,045.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? I'm sorry, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Amanda?
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Dr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, some updates on our last month's report on our county facility maintenance things. A lot of things have been completed with special thanks to Jeff and Billy for their hard work. The animal shelter roof has been completed. We are still working on the transfer station tipping floor. Bid specifications are under development for that project. We completed some carpet cleaning, including the ECC, the courthouse, social services, and also the registrar's office and library. We had have completed some signage maintenance where we just kind of refresh the signage at the courthouse complex, the registrar's office, and the McGinnis building. Let's see, Judge Doucette let us know that we had some repairs needed to be done on the courthouse complex steps over on the Court Street entrance, and Billy and Jeff got right on that, and that's been completed as well. Let's see, last month I reported on some unbudgeted facility needs that were upcoming. The first related to the Commonwealth Attorney Office door. There's some ADA accessibility needs and also some security-related needs related to that office. We've gotten some pricing, which is being vetted by staff. Our current quotes are $10,000 for the door and installation, which includes necessary wiring. And we've also gotten a quote of approximately $20,000 from Johnson Controls to establish the tie-in to the current badging, security, and monitoring system. So we're still coordinating with the Commonwealth's attorney and their staff to find an acceptable security solution. As well as IT staff is in touch with Johnson Controls, trying to get a better sense of, what is driving the price of that quote, and see if we can get it down some. So that work is ongoing. We haven't made any strides yet in the animal shelter ceiling repair. And I don't have an update yet from animal control or facilities staff on the shelter drain and kennel repair project. So hopefully we'll have something soon on that. Let's see, I've been playing phone tag with Mr. Steele of CHA, so I don't have an update for you at this time on the Larkin water capacity follow-up proposal that we asked him to put together. So I'll be checking back in with him. Hopefully we can connect and get that back to the board soon.
About December, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
That's the goal. On the Renaissance Ridge development, this approval of their plan, their final site plan, was deferred until FEMA had completed their review process for a letter of map amendment or revision, which proposed to correct and relocate the flood map boundaries. FEMA has been in the process of updating the Nelson County flood maps on their own, which are slated to be adopted in February 2025 and effective August 2025. The current maps were made effective in 2010. FEMA recently notified the applicant that their letter of map amendment or revision process is no longer necessary or required because the boundary of the flood zone is changing to the point that the proposed development will no longer be in a regulatory flood zone. The Renaissance Ridge plan is scheduled to go to the Planning Commission at their November 20th meeting, where the review criteria is the plan's general consistency with the Wintergreen Master Plan. Ms. Bishop, as the county certified floodplain manager, is responsible to ensure that no development occurs in this area until the maps removing this area are formally effective in August 2025. Okay, getting down to the end here, emergency medical services updates. Gladstone Fire and Rescue Service has relicensed as a basic life support or BLS agency as of October 30th. They have an MOU to this effect that was executed by Dr. Just, who's the operational medical director. Also John Atkins as Director of Emergency Services, and David Lyon, the Gladstone Volunteer Fire and Rescue Services Captain. Responses requiring ALS care will be handled by other Nelson EMS ALS agencies, mutual aid EMS partners, and neighboring ground and air evac agencies. The new EMS pharmaceutical regulations related to the elimination of the current drug box exchange program with hospitals were slated to go into effect November 27, 2024. These have been delayed, and an extension has been granted to EMS agencies through April 15, 2025. But I'm happy to say that we have met this original deadline. And thanks and congratulations to Mike Riddle and Deborah Flint of Wintergreen Fire and Rescue Service, who ensured that we met the original deadline. A quick update on our FY25 first quarter revenue. The collection of local revenue for the first quarter of the fiscal year is very slightly higher than compared to the first quarter of FY24. It's up about 0.31%. Notable positive contributing revenue collections are real estate taxes, local sales tax, transient occupancy taxes, building permits, and fines and forfeitures. Notable negative offsetting revenue collections are meals tax, transfer station tipping fees. We do not have the VPSA refinancing rebate that ended last fiscal year in FY24, so that has created a little bit of a difference. And EMS revenue recovery. So that EMS revenue recovery revenue is temporarily significantly down due to a statewide issue with the importing of electronic patient care records for billing purposes from the state contracted entity that facilitates this transfer of data, and that company is ESO. This revenue is expected to greatly improve once this is fixed and the back billing and normal billing of transport services resumes, and that should be within the next couple of weeks. I have attached some FY25 budget reports as of 9/30, I believe, the first quarter. You also have the meals and lodging tax collection and lodging entity tracking reports and charts attached. So, I believe you did receive all of the other departmental staff reports. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, question. I know this has been a discussion point prior regarding the tracking of those who have registered short-term rentals in rooms, products such as all the rooms. Has that discussion ever commenced further since the transition of Commissioner Revenues?
No, it has not.
Yeah. I still would be interested in seeing some kind of a more robust active system. I mean, as you can see, you know, the records show that it's paying sizable sums. I mean, we could have a fairly easy system for both our staff, Commissioner Revenue's office, as well as the constituents to have an easier mechanism to file, pay, and keep track of where they're at and for us to monitor.
Yeah, I can talk to Kim Goff again and see if we can get that revisited. And
It should be, I think it would be good for them and good for everybody, potentially. So.
Okay.
It's fascinating, those taxes are.
Any other questions or comments on the county administrator's report? No? Thank you, Candy.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, next we have board reports. Start down here with Dr. Ligon. You have anything to report?
Actually, don't.
Okay. Ernie?
The Drug Recovery Court had their first graduation at the end of October, so something that started out as a pretty good idea, see if we could get this done, not only has come to fruition, but we've had our first graduates, and Mr. Rutherford and Candy and I were there for that, for the graduation, and more good news on the way as other people fulfill their obligations going through the drug court process as well. So thanks to all the agencies and individuals that have put in so much time and energy to make that happen. It's a great thing for the county, I believe. The couple of meetings where nothing very significant happened. The Virginia Association of Counties retreat at the beginning of the week was, I think those of us that were there would agree that it was great. Is there anything specific? Other people would probably cover it. It's just that you couldn't go to a session where someone wasn't talking about solar energy and data centers. It was everywhere. I know this isn't really a directive, but we ought to have a definition for data centers and be on alert to the problems that they and the opportunities for some folks that they might offer for the county. And something that I think is not insignificant, the Livingston Mobile Exxon Station got a $600,000 grant from VDOT to have the first public EV charging station. So for those people that are either driving or considering getting an EV before the end of the year, the federal government is still providing a lot of financial incentives for that. Don't know if that's going to hold forever, but every time there's a new charging station, those vehicles are more valuable. So.
How much was that grant?
They got $600,000. They had to match part of it.
Yeah.
But not much. I mean,
Each place
Yeah.
to charge is 400K.
No.
Yeah. He's putting a couple of them in.
Yeah, and there's, Madison Heights is gonna get one and some other places, so.
Sheets in Madison Heights has several, I know,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's my report.
All right. Mr. Rutherford.
Yes, a few things to report. Jessica and I had a 2x2 with the school board, was that last week? Had good discussions, talking about capital improvements, what the future is going to be related to jobs, what revenue options exist out there as we're in a moving environment. Of course, the conversation, we went back to the state in regards to how the state looks at the county and how it is greatly impacted by the metrics it utilizes. How is it that we look at overcoming some of those odds? We talked about, state of some of the workforce, some of their struggles, what they're seeing, as well as the pupil situations and the changing kind of environment and classroom environment and behavior problems and stuff of that nature. And so it was a great discussion. Beyond that, we had the TJPDC. Not much to report there, other than lots. I mean, I can't emphasize this month. Data centers is, when you said it's not just mentioned, there's mentioned also at the PDC level, which reminds me of another conversation Dr. Ligon and I had prior, referencing the nuclear module units, kind of the micro-sized ones. And just, I believe it was today, they just announced in Campbell County that near BWXT that they're looking at putting one there. And if I'm not mistaken, already, didn't Louisa say they're looking at getting 2? Something of that nature?
I don't recall.
Yeah, so Louisa, Orange, in that area are looking at probably potentially getting 2. So those particular technologies don't come with just 6-9 digits of build. It's $2.5 billion in a lot of situations. So we just need to be cognizant of that. Where does the county want to be on that regard? I know Dr. Ligon and I had some interactions with the co-op lightly, just to learn more about it, what potentials exist for energy, because as we move forward, energy is going to become an even bigger and larger conversation. Did I miss anything on the 2x2s, Jessica? Did you want to add anything else?
Well, I guess the one thing that I thought was interesting that you didn't mention was there's a big shift in the type of student,
Right.
Especially in Afton area, in the Rockfish Elementary School, and how we're going to have more staff because of a federal mandate. So it was interesting to hear about the population shift that I wasn't aware of was happening. So
I believe that was.
and it was English as a second
ESL,
language
yeah.
children. So
Yep.
yeehaw.
Beyond that, Baco, I can compound the whole nuclear data center solar. That was redundant. You're hearing that everywhere. We have to be figuring out what that looks like for us. Then workforce. I went to one of the sessions I went to was workforce availability today, and that was it was interesting listening to the Kilgore Delegate or Senator Kilgore talk about how in Southwest Virginia, the change of economics, coal mining, how those things disappeared and what replaced it, not much. And now when an entity looks to come in, he says the $1 billion question, the $1 billion question is who's going to work these jobs? both from a qualification standpoint, but also just a body standpoint. Do we have an available ready workforce to work the jobs? So that was really interesting to see that discussion. That ran into the cultural struggle that we've had over the decades, where we've spent multiple decades too long of pushing for undergrad and graduate programs when we needed blue-collar working people to be filling the service industry and construction and all those other entities. Work from home did come up as a major contributing factor of what our workforce looks like today. I actually mentioned Nelson County. At one point, we were the #1 most remote per capita in Virginia to work from home. That discussion came up. A lot of people don't talk about it enough, but with the internet and digital age, with its pros and a lot of cons, a job in any part of the United States and even Europe is a job you can have in Nelson County. I reminded them of a friend of mine who, over the course of COVID, graduated from grad school and got some major job out in London, working fully remote. And so we weren't just we're taking jobs from overseas and leaving it in Nelson. But that's just something that we need to be thoughtful of. On the other sessions, which one did we go to, David? We went to the budget session for the state. There's a lot of interesting takes there. The state has a surplus. I think it was like $1.4 billion, some metric, I think. And specific immediate demands that are likely going to arise from Medicare and Medicaid of about $800 million, which will absorb that $1.4 million. There was further discussion on the JLARC study, which was directly related to how the state directs its algorithm to pay per pupil across the Commonwealth. And I think by their conclusion and how they're lagging, I believe it was like a $3 billion shortage. And the best pathway forward on a per pupil was about $1.5 billion. So as we look into the future of even the JLARC study, we're looking at harder times and how those metrics are going to impact communities like Nelson County. So beyond that, I don't think, then data centers, like Ernie said. So
And
that's
data
my long
centers.
report.
Yeah.
Well, so VDOT had, VDOT and
Oh, yes.
Sheriff Embry
The
had 29 safety.
That was well attended. Front Street was all there. All of Front Street was there.
I thought attendance was light,
Yeah.
but it was interesting to hear what the public felt was the issues on 29. Some of the things that VDOT has done to make 29 safer. Over 25% of the accidents are actually people that run off the road and overcorrect. And so the things that they've done to help that, but it's actually distracted driving and people speeding was really the thing. So I think they got a lot of good input. I do wish it was better attended.
Yeah.
But I think it went well for Sheriff Embry. So.
A lot of reports.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so VACO was good. Good connections with a lot of people around the state. Got to meet Kilgore, I don't know, Senator.
Terry.
Rep,
Yeah, Southwest.
Yeah, that was good, and some other, like I said earlier, got to speak to Delegate Rasool and Senator Favola about line of duty benefits, so that was a good conversation. They were actually hosting a breakout session on K-12 education and mental health, and what my biggest takeaway from that was not necessarily what they said in that conversation. They focused on mental health of students and guidance counselors, and it was funny. They said, one of the things everybody agreed on is that no counselor should have more than 100 student caseload. And I'm thinking, we've got 400 kids at one elementary school, and I don't know that we even have a full-time counselor right now because we're in the transition. I think we have to substitute in, but even when we get it filled, it's 400 kids to one, and they're talking about how the caseload should be no more than 100. But what my biggest takeaway from that whole conversation, they talked for an hour, and all they talked about was mental health for students and guidance counselors. Not once did anybody in that room mention, until it became time for us to ask questions as the participants, the bus driver, the cafeteria worker, the student, the teaching assistant, the teacher, everybody else, and the janitor, the mental health of all of them. And luckily, I not only had a good speech that I wrote to present to the committee afterwards, but there were also two educators in the room, one office worker who is on the board of supervisors in her county, and one who is a high school teacher. And the three of us took that opportunity to remind them that it's more than just students and guidance counselors that that need mental health services, and so that was good feedback for them to take, because I can't remember the committee. I should have pulled it up to see what committee that Favola and Russell serve on together, but it has to do with that end of education. And so they definitely heard the message that it's widespread. The environment has changed. We also got to talk about the push on student attendance and the negative fallout from that, where you have administrators who are so focused on attendance that they are forced to let student behaviors go by the wayside because they don't want the students out of school. They want them in the building, and they want them counted in that average daily head count. And it's creating mental health issues for everybody in the building, not just students and guidance counselors. So it was good conversation, better conversation when the session ended, when we were able to bring up some points that they hadn't discussed. The other thing I wanted to report on, last time we had a question about the cover the caboose, and the caboose at the Piney River Trail. So the budget for that was right at $18,000. Well, the estimates for that were right at $18,000 to just build the structure. Now, those estimates are about 6 to 8 months old. I would imagine it's probably somewhere between 18 and 20. There is a donation out there waiting of $6,310, leaving a balance of around $12,000 for the county if we want to protect that caboose at the trail. That does include moving the caboose, because right now it is under the power line, so it has to be moved a little bit to get out of the right of way for the power company, and building the structure as well. So I would like for us to consider, if we have the money in the budget, to allocate money for that project that's been out there for a while. I would say that current estimate is $12,000. I would say if we could approve no more than $15,000, I would think that would give plenty of room for any inflation on the estimates of construction. How do you feel?
Our non-recurring contingency after today's budget amendment is about $444,000.
Okay.
That would be where those funds would come from, I imagine.
Okay. Any input from board on that project?
What's the current fundraising situation there?
It ended in, the plan was for it to take place over the summer. The caboose should have been built, and the grand opening ribbon cutting should have been held in October. That was the original schedule. So the fundraising effort ended in September, end of August, 1st of September. So those funds are sitting there and available for use, a little over $6,300.
It's 63 plus the 18?
No, it's 63 is there, bringing the total down to around 12 plus inflation since the estimates were gotten. So my estimate was 15, but the current estimates for the project, $17,870 less the $6,300 sitting there, leaves a balance of $11,560 to be exact, and then any difference in construction costs since then. What's the pleasure of the board?
I mean, I'm interested in doing it. Is Parks and Rec going to go out and get another quote again?
Yeah, they'll update.
They'll update it.
Yeah. They're just waiting on information from us to move forward or not.
Yeah, I think we ought to move forward. It's not a lot of money to keep and prolong the life of that as an amenity and where it is. And, yeah, I'd be in favor of it.
All right, well, we'll entertain a motion to allocate,
How much money?
I would say we just no more than, I say we present it as no more than $15,000. I would be comfortable with that.
Up to 15,000.
Yeah.
And this is going to, for the caboose.
For Parks and Rec to allocate for the covering the caboose at the Piney River Trailhead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appropriate up to $15,000 for the covering of the caboose at the rail trail down there at the junction.
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And if you could let Mr. West know. Next, we have appointments. Doesn't look like we have anybody to vote on.
No, we do not. I'm working on people for both positions. The Community Criminal Justice Board, I may have a person, not a resident, but somebody who could represent Nelson, so checking on that right now to see if that is a possibility. And waiting to hear back from Mary Cunningham to see if she's interested in continuing her service on the Job Work Council on Aging. We are advertising both of these positions currently, so December should have some more information.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have correspondence. Anyone have anything to share? Hearing none. Directives. Anyone have any directives for staff?
A few things. Been hearing from some constituents who have larger households, like households that have 6 or more children who produce a little bit more trash. So they've been taking the trash to Fauber, and they've been often turned away because is there a trash bag maximum?
I don't know, I have to look to see if there's a definite standard, but I know that large loads of trash bags are discouraged to be
Yeah.
being brought at,
No, I
one
understand.
time, especially if, and they can get turned away if the compactors are already full and they need to be picked up.
Is Fauber becoming a regular issue that you know of? Because I'm not hearing this in Shipment. Have you heard
Oh, we've had some trash issues.
at Shipment too?
I haven't heard a lot of these issues, no.
Yeah, if you could look into this. So a great example, a household, they got 5, 6 kids. They're producing a fair amount of trash a week.
17 kids.
As might be expected. They've been turned away a couple times. And as a matter of fact, I sit here, I know of one household that's got like 12 children, 18 children in Skylar, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need their own recycling program.
They have a dumpster at their business.
Yeah,
They could-
they probably fill that up in 2 seconds. But that and a couple other individuals have mentioned this to me. And that is all for now.
Any other directives? If not, thank you all. We're going to go into closed session. We're going to take a short break. Hold on, ma'am. We good? Okay, sorry. So yeah, we're going to take a short break, and then what should we do about closed session? Just when we come back from break,